Hey guys, welcome back to a brand new video here on the channel. Now this is a video I've been wanting to make for quite some time and a lot of research has gone into this. I say a lot, but like, a couple of days, give or take. So today I'm going to be discussing my top 10 realistic prosthetic makeups that we've seen in films. So this is probably going to be a very subjective list. It's probably going to differ a lot to yours, and it may be the case where someone will comment and be like, you forgot X, Y, and Z. No, I didn't forget anything. Again, this is all subjective. But when it comes to realistic prosthetic makeups, given the fact that makeup technology has evolved so much over the years, but at the same time, we have beautiful makeups from, say, the 70s, the 80s in film that still hold up to this very day and sometimes look better than modern makeup. So there's a bit of variety in this list, but I want to give a few honorable mentions before we hit my top 10. So first off, I want to give a massive shout out to the very talented Paul Bailey, who, along with his brother, made the fan film The Last Dream of Detective Coleman, where Paul himself played a younger, unburned, pre-burned Fred Krueger. So he transformed himself into a Robert Englund lookalike with the help of this beautiful prosthetic piece that Paul made. Now, Paul also made that beautiful Part 2 Freddy bust that you see right here. And Paul was gracious enough to send me a copy of his nose upper lip prosthetic that just transforms his whole face. And he looks like a multiverse version of Robert Englund. Now, I highly recommend checking out the fan film. It is available free on YouTube. Again, this was Paul and his brother that made the film. And it's a great little fan film. It's a great twist on a pre-burned Fred Krueger before he was ultimately torched, became the dream demon that we all know and love. Now, my final two honorable mentions kind of correlate together because it's based around the same character. So firstly, it's Billy Zane's Marlon Brando makeup from the upcoming film Waltzing with Brando. So this makeup was actually done by friend of the channel, Mr. Christopher Nelson, along with Mike McCash and Jerry Constantine. Now again, the film isn't out yet, but I love this makeup as you see right here. And the other variations of the makeup is Billy Zane portrays Marlon Brando throughout his life and his career. But this Don Vito makeup recreating when he was filming The Godfather looks incredible. If you told me that was Billy Zane without me knowing Billy Zane was cast as Marlon Brando, I'd call you a goddamn liar. And perfect segue, my last honorable mention is Dick Smith's Don Vito makeup on Marlon Brando himself, the real Marlon Brando, in The Godfather. This is the epitome of simplicity at its finest. And a lot of these makeups in my list either have very heavy prosthetics or very light prosthetics where they change the face drastically. And in the case of Don Vito's makeup done by the legendary Dick Smith, it is a prime example, especially when it came to those little dentures that gave him the jowls and the subtle wrinkles, the changing of the hair and stuff like that. It just changes Marlon Brando's face ridiculously and then accompanied with a brilliant performance. So those are my honorable mentions. We're going to get into it now with my top 10. I wouldn't say these are in no particular order, but number one is number one for a reason. So starting off at number 10, we're starting off on a bit of a somber note. As of a couple of days ago, the legend himself, Mr. Greg Canham, unfortunately passed away. Greg was an absolute powerhouse in the makeup effects world. He won 2 Oscars, one for Mrs. Doubtfire and the other for Bram Stoker's Dracula. He had a career that just spanned so many films, so many memorable characters. But the one particular makeup I want to touch on today that I feel is, I wouldn't say it's underlooked, I just don't think it's talked about enough. And that is Mason Verger from Hannibal, portrayed by Gary Oldman. I think this makeup is so disturbing and so haunting and so realistic, it just gives you the heebie-jeebies. And given the fact that Gary Oldman didn't get credited for this film, there are a few stories of why. He wanted to remain uncredited, so it helped with the mystique of being under that makeup and people not knowing it was indeed Gary Oldman. But then there was also supposedly a billing issue. He wanted top billing on top of Anthony Hopkins, which is just a no-no. Just shut the fuck up, Gary, and don't worry about it. So I don't know which story to believe. But going back to Greg Canham's beautiful makeup for Mason Verger, not only aesthetically is it a beautiful makeup, but technically it's a very interesting makeup. Gary Oldman said that there were strings under his eyes, under the makeup, that went down to his chest and attached to what he said was a third nipple, where right before filming, they'd tug a little switch on the string and it would pull the string down and open his eyes. And so they had to have someone there like on standby to moisten his eyes, put drops in his eyes because they'd quickly dry out because he's unable to blink. But just this is the epitome of a makeup completely changing an actor and being unrecognizable. And there are a few makeups on this list that do that. But this one, because it's so realistic, and apparently Ridley Scott and Greg Canham consulted medical books and stuff like that. What would happen to a face if you indeed carved your own skin off with a shard of broken mirror? Why don't you try peeling your face off? Mason, would you like a popper? It seemed like a good idea at the time. Cordell! That's my shitty Mason Verger impression. So there we go. That is my number 10, guys. And rest in peace to the man, the myth, the legend that is Greg Canham. Thank you for all your work. And man, what a career. Coming in at number 9 is Heath Ledger's Joker makeup from Christopher Nolan's The Dark Knight. Now, this makeup was done by Connor O'Sullivan and John Caglione Jr. So I'm fully aware that one part of it is clown makeup, but I'm more or less talking about Heath's Joker scars, his Chelsea grin, whatever you want to call it. There were 3 pieces of quote-unquote stamped silicone. Now, they said back in 2007/2008 that this was kind of a new technology. I don't know if it was flat print, like flat molded pieces of silicone, or they were indeed sculpted on a live cast of Ledger. I have seen one particular photo, which I, for the life of me, cannot find anymore, of Heath Ledger's life cast and the sculptures being kind of tweaked and, fiddled around with. But I think, again, this is the prime example of simplicity where that's Heath Ledger, but the scars are so disturbing. It's also, akin to Mason Verger, but not to that full extent, where you can see at one point, his lip was split in 2 pieces, and just the asymmetricalness of the makeup. One side for that matter looks like a grin. The other side just looks like he's been shot twice in the cheek. And I love the story that Heath's dialect coach tells, that because the lip would feather inside, that the fake lip for that matter would feather inside his mouth, he'd lick it a lot and it would start to lift. And that's where he got that trademark licking of the lips from for the character of the Joker. Again, a very simple makeup, 3 pieces of silicone, but it's Heath, but at the same time, it just drastically changes all here. And then once that clown makeup's on, it changes his whole face. It even changes his eyes. That's the way I see it anyway. Pun intended. Next up, we have Charlize Theron's monster makeup done by Tony G when she portrayed Arlene Warners. So again, this is drastically changing a face of an actor, especially someone who is very attractive, very good looking. It just completely changed Charlize's face, and Tony G did an incredible job. Nothing over the top in terms of thick prosthetics. This is more subtle, but at the same time, it changes the whole aesthetic of Charlize's face. And given the fact we've got some rotten dentures, contact lenses as well, we go from Charlize Theron's beautiful blue eyes to beady, dark, almost soulless eyes, capped off with that brilliant performance that won her an Oscar. I couldn't find many behind the scenes photos of the makeup application except these ones here, and of course her putting those rotten nasty dentures in, and that, it to me, is just like the cherry on top. It's such a great makeup, it's such a great performance, it's such a disturbing movie as well. That notion of when an actor has makeup on or a very difficult costume, you have to work it, you have to fight it, otherwise it's going to override you and fight you. Coming in at number 7 is the Dr. Loomis makeup from the flashback scene in Halloween Kills, once again done by a friend of the channel, Mr. Christopher Nelson, and also Vincent Van Dyke Effects and his crew. This is such a fascinating story. When we first got glimpses of Loomis in the trailers for Halloween Kills, we thought it was a deep fake. I was convinced it was a deep fake. I even did a video saying it was a deep fake. Chris Nelson then came out and said, nope, it was a multi-piece, between 10 to 12 piece prosthetic on the construction foreman who worked on the film by the name of Tom Jones Jr. I really have to pick Chris's brain about it once again. I don't know if it was himself who spotted Tom Jones Jr. or David Gordon Green on set, and they're like, a guy kind of looks like Loomis. Let's put some prosthetics on him. And it looks incredible. Again, this is all about subtlety right here. You have a perfect blank canvas that has so much potential, and you accentuate features here and there to make him look like Donald Pleasance, capped off with some beautiful costuming, some beautiful cinematography with that flashback sequence. It is an absolute pearler. It's the highlight of the film for me. And they dubbed his voice. I'm not sure who exactly did the voice. I don't know if it was Tom Kane who did Loomis's voice from Halloween H2O at the beginning with that monologue during the opening credits. But my God, man, like what a funny story. The construction foreman, of all people. They didn't do casting calls and stuff like that. They just saw the construction foreman on set and they're like, he'll do. And he does a really good job. His mannerisms are great. I love when he stumbles out the front door when the police have Michael surrounded. He kind of does that lean against the door frame like Donald Pleasance did in the original Halloween. The mannerisms are spot on. The makeup is beautiful. It's subtle, but so well done with some beautiful hair work, wig work, a false beard and stuff like that. So kudos to Chris, Vincent, the entire makeup department for that one. It really took us all by surprise. Coming in at number 6, and we have Gary Oldman once again, and the first appearance on this list, and not the last, of Kazuhiro from Darkest Hour, when Gary Oldman portrayed Winston Churchill and actually won himself a cute little statue because of his performance. So when it comes to adding mass on an actor, technically, it can be very tricky. Like logistically, how would the skin behave on a chin, on the cheeks, rolls, folds, stuff like that. And for this Winston Churchill makeup, it moves so naturally, so beautifully. I think also it helps that you have a classically trained actor who can emote through that makeup and give a great performance. But Kazuhiro, I feel, is one of the greatest makeup artists when it comes to hyper-realistic prosthetic makeup. Like whether it be, one end of the spectrum where it's covering the entire face, multiple pieces, or there's going to be an example coming up in this list where it's just little pieces here and there, whether it be on the cheekbones, the chin, the brows, just to accentuate and change the face ever so slightly. This Churchill makeup, along with the suit that Gary Oldman wore, the performance, it looks great. He does look a lot like Winston Churchill. You can still tell it's Gary Oldman under there, especially in his eyes. I think because Oldman as an actor and the makeup just worked so well together. All the elements just worked perfectly. Coming in at number 5 is Brendan Fraser as Charlie in The Whale, with makeup being done by Canadian-based makeup artist Adrian Moreau. This is a fascinating story because Adrian and his crew had mere weeks to create this makeup, and most of it was created digitally. So we now are in an age where we do a lot of mixed media with digital, traditional sculpture. They both work beautifully hand in hand. Case in point, Ben Affleck's Batman cowl from Batman v Superman. That was a mixture of traditional and digital sculpture. But nowadays, a lot of makeup companies, a lot of effects artists and stuff like that are 3D printing jackets for matrix molds and prosthetics and bucks and stuff like that. It definitely is a time saver, but now with the added advantage of resin printers where you can get high definition prints, you have to do next to no body work where you lose detail and stuff like that. When it came to Brendan Fraser's character of Charlie, who is morbidly obese, there was a lot of thought that had to go into this because at one point you had to have a full physical bodysuit. Most of the time, it is just a standard bodysuit that is hidden under clothes and doesn't require a silicone skin. But there is like a whole harness rig system that goes into this. A lot of engineering, a lot of stuff you wouldn't even notice. I mean, even down to the gloves Brendan Fraser wears as Charlie, just, to add mass to his fingers, his forearms, everything just worked so well together. And going back to Adrian Moreau and his crew, mostly doing this digitally with the molds, the castings, and then casting these pieces in silicone, I'd have to read up and see how much that original bodysuit weighed for that shot of Charlie in the shower. Again, like a lot of these actors, paired with a brilliant performance that nabbed Brendan Fraser an Oscar, as well as Adrian Moreau an Oscar. So again, just working hand in hand and it working out so beautifully on screen. Like even this shot here of Brendan Fraser in his full prosthetic body. Even his calves, his legs, it looks like, you know, he's suffering from lymphedema, and the coloring, the hair punching, everything, the care and detail. It's just absolutely incredible craftsmanship. So moving on to number 4, we have F. Murray Abraham's makeup from the film Amadeus, done by the legendary Dick Smith. This is one of those instances where, and this film came out in 1984, the makeup to this very day still holds up. I think, again, paired with a brilliant performance, but just seeing an actor disappear in this beautiful layered multi-piece makeup, again, done by the master that is Dick Smith, it's great, it's timeless. I remember even seeing this as a kid and thinking, damn, that is good. I don't know what this movie's about, but that's good. And there's a brilliant interview with F. Murray Abraham discussing the makeup, and it just seemed like he was all in. He loved it. He loved the process. It helped with his character. And you have Dick Smith, who was an absolute pioneer with makeup effects. You know, even just like the subtle stubble, the beard, stuff like that, the way it changes F. Murray Abraham's brows and his mannerisms and everything. So much so, Mike Marino, who is still yet to make an appearance on this list, don't worry, he's coming up for a very special reason, and the thumbnail is kind of a giveaway. He just completed a 1-to-1 scale bust of the Amadeus makeup on F. Murray Abraham. And it looks absolutely incredible. Like, that is a brilliant tribute piece right there. Coming in at number 3, I've paired these two characters together because it's from the same film. So the film is Bombshell. Now, Kazuhiro is back once again on this list, but we have Charlize Theron as Megan Kell and John Lithgow as Roger File. So this is each end of the spectrum. We have John Lithgow in some very heavy prosthetics to make him look like Roger Files, and then you have Charlize Theron in very subtle, feature accentuating makeup done by Kazuhiro to portray Megan Kell, and it changes the whole look of her face, the whole aesthetic of her face. You know, higher cheekbones, a different chin, and then you have John Lithgow in a very heavy set makeup that has to add a few pounds and stuff like that. I don't know how tall Roger Files is in real life, whereas John Lithgow, I think he's like 6'4". So that there creates a bit of a problem and a bit of an issue trying to make such a tall actor who is very long, try and make them very wide. It can be quite a tricky thing. And it was probably the same with Brendan Fraser playing Charlie. You know, he's like 6'2", 6'3". So that then in itself would have been a bit of an issue, but it turned out beautifully. And again, with John Lithgow changing his posture to portray the character, and then you have Charlize Theron, who is no stranger to heavy prosthetic makeup, in this case more lighter and subtle prosthetic makeup. It still is a process. It still takes a couple of hours, but it just changes her whole face. And this is what fascinates me, where you can take the thinnest bit of silicone, apply it to an actor's face, and boom, it changes the whole look. It changes their whole dynamic in terms of their acting. And again, it's all these elements beautifully working together. Coming in at number 2 is one that technically isn't in a film, but to this day, it still amazes me, and it has a very cool story behind it. This is the homeless man makeup done by the legend himself, Mr. Kevin Yeager, applied to the legend himself and a man I have had the absolute honor of working for, Mr. Alec Gillis, co-founder of Studio ADI, and now has formed Studio Gillis. So this was done, I believe, back in 1984/1985. Kevin Yeager just wanted to add bits and pieces to his portfolio. So he came up with this old man makeup and he wanted to apply it to a friend. So he enlisted the help of his friend and effects artist Alec Gillis to apply it to him. And they were going to rent a camcorder, go to a park and see Alec in the makeup, in character, changing his voice, interacting, you know, with people at the park, kids and stuff like that. And you see the process here of Kevin applying the makeup to Alec bit by bit, and then by the end, when it's all said and done, it looks brilliant. And again, to this day, in my opinion, it still holds up. It looks incredible. You wouldn't pick that Alec Gillis is under there. Young, rugged, handsome Alec Gillis is buried underneath that old age makeup. And like, just take a look at this behind the scenes stuff here of him interacting with kids at the park.
You know, job security, easy living, and 58 was 58. But I can run away from you anytime I want to. I can run. Okay? Okay. Got my teeth. You got my teeth somewhere.
Now, the cool thing about this particular makeup, This is actually the makeup that got Kevin the job on A Nightmare on Elm Street Part 2, Freddy's Revenge, doing the Freddy Krueger makeup for Robert Englund, which in my opinion is one of the greatest Freddy Krueger makeup looks of all time next to Part 1. Clearly, I'm a bit of a fan. And coming in at number 1 is Colin Farrell's Oscorp Penguin makeup from the Batman and the Penguin TV series, done by the handsome, talented bastard that is Mike Marino. This is like the Mason Verger makeup, the epitome of an actor completely disappearing in some beautifully engineered makeup. I remember when the first trailer dropped for the Batman, and there was that one shot of Colin Farrell in the Penguin makeup during that sequence where the Batmobile's revving up in the rain and he looks pissed. No one knew, including myself, that that was Colin Farrell for a good couple of hours until people dissected it and they're like, oh shit, there he is. Because when he was cast as the Penguin, I'm like, that's an odd choice. Like, the dude's like ridiculously good looking. How are you gonna ugly him up? And you know, you look at Charlize Theron in Monster and it can be done. Now, I don't know for sure if they changed the makeup process from the Batman to the Penguin TV series. I'm assuming it's probably working with a lesser budget for the TV series. Could be wrong. But the application itself, you see right here, you know, Colin had to shave part of his head, but once he gets under that makeup and he puts on that voice, you just do not know it is Colin Farrell. Like, look at this beautiful test footage here of him trying out the voice. And this is, you know, I'm pretty sure this is the first makeup test.
Some of your business. Want to know things about me? Why don't you send me a little email? I'll write you back real quick. Where do you live? Where do you live, actually? I can hand deliver a letter to you. I can hand deliver a letter to you.
Once again, this is because of some beautifully engineered makeup by Mike Marino and his crew. Everything from the pox marks, like the little veins on the nose, the hair punching, everything is there. This face tells a story. This face is the face of a very battle-hardened member of the mob in Gotham. Like, this dude's probably copped so many glasses to the face, and he's got scarring and like nose scarring, and I love the way they've subtly added a penguin like nose to the makeup, and that's how they nickname him the Penguin. So again, when a makeup tells a story and the story makes sense, it's so beautiful, again paired with a brilliant performance. And then as filming went on for the Batman, we saw those set photos, and just seeing Colin Farrell in the makeup in broad daylight, because it's not controlled, it can be quite harsh, and that can sometimes make or break a makeup. In this case, it didn't break it at all. The makeup just looked great under any lighting condition, and that is knowing you've done a damn good job. And there you go, guys. Those are my personal top 10 realistic makeup effects. Again, this one at the beginning was a bit of a somber one with the sad passing of Greg Cannon, but again, the dude left behind such a legacy. Like, talk about a talent bag and a half. With that being said, let me know your favorite realistic prosthetic makeups down below. Next up, I eventually want to do my top 10 monster makeups. So got a bit of thinking to do with that one because there is a lot to go through. Love you guts, and I'll catch you in the next one.